Hello and welcome to Bristol Reptile Emporium's YouTube channel. I'm Gail.
And I'm Michelle.
And today we are going to talk through how to care and look after a leopard gecko. So Michelle, would you like to start? Give us a little bit of information on who this is.
So this is Peanut. This is one of the resident leopard geckos that we have in store. So he goes out and does educational talks, and we use him when customers are looking into a leopard gecko and aren't quite sure of their adult size. So Peanut will have a lifespan in the region of about 15 years. There are some older leopard geckos that are out there now that are starting to go past that sort of life point. As our understanding of them and technology improves to look after them, we're finding they're having a longer lifespan, which is nice. So he's fully grown, he's not going to get any bigger than this. And I would approximate him to be about 7 to 8 inches. And he's probably around the 85 to 90 gram mark in weight. And we don't really want him to put any more weight on than that at the moment.
Very interesting. And what type of food does he eat?
So he's an insectivore, so he would solely eat things like, well, a range of live food. So in captivity, we tend to have about 6 species of live food that we heavily rely on. In the wild, he would eat lots of different insects that he'd come across.
Okay, and how often would he eat?
So we tend to feed every other day, and that is really to encourage him to eat the live food that's available for him, and not to leave lots of live food in the enclosure, because there is a slight risk that if that live food is hungry, it might have a little pop at him. But with this method, we tend to find that that's not a problem, and he eats most of his food quite readily.
And do you give him a variety of different foods?
Yeah, so we tend to mix between things like locusts, crickets and mealworms. We don't want any foods that are too fatty for Peanut because he is a bigger chap. We do need to keep an eye on his weight level.
Okay. Can I handle him?
You certainly can, yes.
So how would you like me to do this?
So the best way to approach handling Peanut is to pop your hands underneath. So a lot of people will go, if they're picking them up off of the enclosure floor, they'll go under the tummy, so the front legs and the hind legs. But what I'll do is I'll get him just to walk over onto your hands here. Peanut's very used to being handled. He comes in contact with quite a lot of different individuals. And what we're looking to do is, as he walks through your hand, is kind of run him onto the next hand so that he feels nice and evenly supported. The type of feet that Peanut has, he's not very good at climbing, so we do need to make sure that he's got a flat surface to walk onto.
Okay, and if I was to buy a leopard gecko, how often can I handle him?
So some owners will handle their leopard geckos daily. The more you do with your animal, the more tame it's likely to become. Obviously, if we don't do much with them, they can be a little bit cranky and a little bit moody when we go to pick them up. So it is good to interact with them on a regular basis. Now, it may not be convenient in your home environment to do that daily, but every other day would be helpful to keep them tame and more willing to interact with you.
And each time I hold him, how long should I do it for?
Well, there's a few environmental factors that we need to take into account. So what's going on with temperatures and things like that. If it's a cooler day, we're going to shorten the period that we handle for, because he's a reptile and we need to provide heat to keep him active. You might find that your household temperature is a little bit cold, so you handle him for a shorter period of time. But if it's a lovely warm summer's day, you could handle him for a while. He will indicate when he's had enough and he needs to go back into the enclosure. So for some leopard geckos, they can be out for a really long period of time, an hour or so, and for other leopard geckos it might be a lot shorter than that. But it's about knowing the individual and adjusting your handling to that individual.
So I guess with Peanut here, because he does a lot of talks, he's very used to being handled and quite comfortable.
He is,
as you can see, he's quite a chilled out little guy. So what type of enclosure would we hold Peanut in?
So we normally house leopard geckos in either a 2 or 3 foot enclosure. Some customers will choose to go larger than this, but it's personal preference, and it also depends on the size that you've got, the space that you've got available within the home. We definitely wouldn't go any smaller than 2 foot for one single adult leopard gecko.
Okay, and does he need other requirements like heating and lighting?
Yeah, so he originates, well, leopard geckos as a group of lizards originate from places like Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, places like this. So we know by the temperatures that they're found at that the UK climate is too cold for them. So we'd have to provide additional heating. That can be in a range of different forms with different equipment being used. We're looking to obtain a basking spot in the region of 28 to 32 degrees. Again, there'll be some variation on this, and some individuals may like to provide slightly different parameters, but in this region is what we're looking for.
Okay, and does he need water?
So they are from a arid environment, so there wouldn't be large bodies of water that we would provide, but we still provide a small amount of water, so it has the option to drink as and when it wants to.
Okay, and what would you put on the bottom of the enclosure?
So substrate is a massive area of debate with leopard geckos. There's lots of different ways of providing suitable substrate, and this is kind of personal preference. It's having a go with one product, seeing if you like it or not, and what suits the style of your enclosure. So bioactive setups are very popular now, and it's something that people are starting to do with semi-arid species too. So you could go for a soil sand mix. Some customers may choose to use sheet paper, but there's lots of variation, and it's a case of having a go and see what you get on with as an individual.
Okay. So is there any type of light that we require in the enclosure?
So we do tend to recommend lighting now. So back when I started keeping reptiles, it wasn't something that was commonly done with leopard geckos. We tend to just keep them with a heat source and no additional lighting. There is now evidence that's coming forward that shows when we keep them with UVB lighting, it proves to have beneficial effect to health, longevity, and it's something that more and more research is being done and more focus is being put towards.
Okay. Is there anything else that we should have in the enclosure, perhaps any plants or hides?
So with leopard geckos, we normally provide a minimum of 2 hides within the enclosure. In the wild, leopard geckos spend a large percentage of the main part of the day underground because of the high temperatures that it can reach. In one of the hides, we'd normally provide moss, and that would provide the option of a damp hide for the leopard gecko. And this is beneficial when the animal goes into shed, and as I say, mimics things that they'd naturally be exposed to in the wild. We can also introduce things like live plants. This is becoming more popular with bioactive enclosures, which people are starting to use with leopard geckos in semi-arid species. Live plants generally don't cause too much of a problem as long as we gut load our live food. It's not generally the leopard geckos that damage the plants, but live food will feed off of live plants if they're in the enclosure and the live food hasn't been gut loaded. So we can gut load our live food with fresh vegetables and other items. We can also provide supplements for the live food when we gut load, and we should also be putting supplements onto the live food prior to feeding so the leopard gecko can absorb it as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. So it's been very useful to learn all about leopard geckos, and very nice to handle Peanut. Is there any other information that you feel that we would require before having one?
Currently, at the minute, I think they're one of the most popular species that we sell to new hobbyists coming into keeping reptiles. So they're a really good docile species that's very popular. They come in a range of colours, which makes them more appealing, and they're a great little pet if it's your first time considering a reptile.
Thank you. Thank you for watching Bristol Reptile Emporium's YouTube channel.
Don't forget to subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you next week for another video. Bye!
Bye!